What's going on, guys? It's Shadow bringing you guys another video. I'm facing a Zoro, which is after locals. I'm facing Jespin here, one of the guys that goes to game night. I choose to go first to take the curve away from Zoro as they want to be more on the aggressive side, and I open up with a My Era Begins just to start searching. I did not see Lafitte, and I believe now I do have Lafitte, so I'm going to start off with a dot Q and Lafitte turn. Don't want to use the Lafitte to be knocked, but I do want to establish the dot Q, so in case he does establish some 3-cost bodies, I will be able to play a Van Augur and start removing them off the field. So that is the main goal at the moment. However, you do see the Shiryu in trash as well. That gives me another option of a form of removal if I do find Kuzan, which I do have in hand. Because using Kuzan's ability, I'll be able to bring out the Shiryu from trash, and then using his activate main, knocking one of my opponent's characters at the original cost of 3. And you do see I end up triggering on My Era Begins, and I'm going to grab Liberation, really considering what I want to grab, whether it's the dot Q or the 2K. I decided to go Liberation because then I can kind of be a little bit more free as far as the ability for my leader. Since if I do give him the chance to go wide and he goes a little too wide fast, I would be able to knock at least 2 characters, but that's just being a little risky as well. You do see I established Kuzan now, which is basically there for when he establishes a 3-cost character so that I can bring back the Shiryu for the knock. My opponent is going to think here for a little while, but ultimately all he's going to do is pretty much swing 8k and then establish the blocker chopper. And as you can see, I still have yet to actually pitch for leader ability. I'm kind of being a little bit more, letting him be a little bit more free as far as the ability goes, because I do have the liberation, so I'm not too afraid of it. But it's still a risky game. And you do see he's considering on trying to figure out what's the best approach here. Not sure what he has in his hand, whether he's got the OP8 chopper, which is the one on play and when attacking, play out an animal from the top of deck. If you do have it, potentially that was probably the move to do, just to start going wide here. But there goes this AK swing that I was telling you guys about. I do end up taking it. Not sure if there was a trigger or not, but at this point, we got to start putting some type of pressure. I was hoping for a Van Augur just so that I can continue to just start popping whatever he plays on the field. However, again, with what I have in trash, I can pretty much do that with ease. I am, however, before I use Kuzan's ability, I'm going to end up swinging with him. Not sure if it's going to be 7 or 5. I'm trying to do the math there, as you can see. Kuzan, I'll get so much value off of it just because I'm going to get a draw off of him. Before I do anything, you do see I search with Lafitte, finding the stage, and stage is exactly what I was looking for, just so that I can start finding the other pieces that I need, like Burgess, maybe 10 drop. But this is what is going to allow me to start searching at least 4 cards a turn, since I'm going to draw 1 and search 3 with the stage. And you do see I pitch the Burgess. Kuzan makes it a lot easier to be able to pitch Burgess, because I'm going to be able to grab from the trash whenever I want. However, in this instance, we are going to bring out the Shiryu, which will KO the chopper since it is an original cost of 3. So the whole plan in the Zoro mirror is just to try to keep him in board control. However, it's a little risky because if they decide to just go wide or just attach all down and swing at face and I have no blockers, it's pretty much in a rough situation for myself. You do see I pitched the Liberation now. There's no point in keeping it, since in order for that card to work, I need to have 2 less characters than my opponent. Currently, I'm sitting at 4. At best, I probably go down to 3 if he knocks out the Lafitte, but there's no way that he's going to go wide enough to be able to, for Liberation to trigger, since I did use my on-play abilities. I did use my negating on-play abilities for my opponent. So again, this is just a rough match overall for my opponent here. Not having that on-play ability to be able to do what the Zoro wants to do with the choppers is just unfortunate. And you do see he's just going to put a lot of pressure on life. So right now he's swinging for another 8k to life. And I do take it. I don't have much counter in this deck, which is very unfortunate. So I'm kind of working with what I have here. I mean, you do see I do pitch the stage using my own stage card. And I do find another 2k Shiryu, which I might be contemplating on because I think there is the 4 cost that I have on the field right now that I can use to pop the Zoro. Nope, it looks like I opt to do the Augur, which will just do the same exact thing since I can do the -3 reduction with the Augur and then use Daku to pop. So I'm kind of giving myself a lot of options, and looks like that is what I decide to do because if he decides to clear these bodies, I will at least get draws off of them. So very trying to math it all out, and at this point I'm just going to start pressuring. And you do see my opponent uses the shut up and come with me event, which is the 1 cost, being able to flood the board of like a 2020 chopper. And here I'm checking my trash to see if I have my second Shiryu, because I only run the Shiryu at a 2 of in the deck currently, but I believe it's in my hand, so I'm going to end up pitching it for my leader ability just so that I could bring it from the trash and get a draw off Kuzan and still swing a decent amount. And you do see I'm doing this Lafitte search to find a card, which is going to be an Augur, which is counter card. And then now the pressure is going to start. No Don up, which means I'm not going to see another one of these 1 cost red Zoro events. But before it looks like I do end up pitching the Shiryu for my leader ability and then using the Kuzan ability to bring it back from the trash to summon it onto the field, and then I'm going to activate its main ability to KO that 3 cost chopper. And my opponent finally realized that I was KOing his field, which is with this 1 card, so he is asking how the reduction happened, and I explained to him that it's checking for an original cost of 3. So after that I'm swinging 6. This time I'm just starting to poke, so swinging 6, 7, and he ends up taking it. And again, this is still a very risky situation that I'm in because I'm sitting at 1 life. If he decides to just swing real aggro at life, I'm going to be forced to take it. And if I do go down to 0, I could establish a 10 drop, but there is a world where he is able to find Diable Jambe. I'm sure that card is ran at a 1 of in at least all Zoro decks. I know you did get the new Sanji from the starter deck, which is a 2k. But I'm not sure if it gives leaders KO or unblockable. So I do trigger out a finger pistol from life. I decide to trigger it out because I thought I would end up establishing a Burgess. So I would rather just get the cards in the trash. However, I was better off just holding it just so that I had some type of, hand filter. But end up not really finding much. And passes their turn over to me. I end up having to take that last life, as you did see. So at this point, I'm considering on going lethal. I believe he had 5 cards in hand, which I potentially just could have just went for game. But instead, I'm going to opt to try to play it safe. Better to be safe than sorry. You do see me grab a 2k counter there, pitching out the Liberation. I do have a decent hand size because I have been taking a lot of my life. And I believe I've been filtering and kind of molding a lot of counter in this hand with, I believe, a 10 cost as well. So in the situation that I'm in, I am going to need to establish a 10 drop or else I automatically lose. However, no Don up on my opponent's side of the field. I am going to be able to poke with all my characters and just run the risk of them potentially seeing like a Goldie Roger if they are running it in the list. I personally think Goldie Roger is a very good card to run, especially now in the meta shift. So I'm trying to play around the Roger, or at least the Diable Jambe, which is why I haven't slapped down a 10 drop yet. Because if my opponent does find Diable Jambe, he is going to be able to just use that on leader and just go right through my 10 drop. So I need to ensure that I have enough counter as well. But it looks like I'm going to just opt to start swinging and poking at my opponent to see if he has bricked or has any type of counter. Zoro, it has been a minute since I've played, but I have seen it brick very terribly. So I decided to just start swinging 5s, and you do see he ends up giving me 2/2Ks. Down to 3 cards. Potentially could have went lethal, but it's already 4 king counter if I saw it correctly, and that would have been very, very difficult math. And that 5 went through, and then I'm gonna here I consider on using Van Auger and the Doc Q to remove this 2020 chopper that is currently on the field, just so that I'm in a little bit of a better spot here. But I'm gonna end up swinging 6K, and he ends up giving me a 2K, another 2K. So it just shows that he was stacked on a lot of counters. So it's a good thing I didn't try to go lethal here. And instead I opt to do Lafitte search here, and looking for any type of counter or blocker. You do see I find a Vasco shot, which is very nice. I believe I do have a 10 drop, but I opt to not use it. And you do see a black hole gets used to KO the chopper, so that I'm removing the aggression that he can have next turn. And I'm going to tap 2 Dawn. You don't see it, but I end up putting another Lafitte. I just put it in the trash since it's going to be in the same spot as the other one. And I find another 2K, which is basically replacing the 1K of Lafitte itself and just gaining another 1K. And here I'm contemplating whether or not to establish the Vasco shot, because potentially I could bait him out and try to see if he goes for that big swing. But again, playing it on the safer side, Vasco shot is established. At worst, he finds the Able Jambe or the Sanji. That will give him unblockable, and I pass turn. My opponent is just going to use Mulgun to remove the Vasco shot and then try to go lethal, and I have exactly enough counter to get out of it and ends up conceding. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below what you guys thought of the match, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.